The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across Clara's worn hands as she polished the mahogany desk. 3 years of invisible service in Julian Blake's mansion, 3 years of silence. Clara. His voice cut through the afternoon stillness like a blade. She looked up to find him standing in the doorway, all sharp angles and expensive cologne. "Sir, I need you tonight. Business dinner. 8 o'clock. His eyes never left his phone. "Just sit there and keep quiet. Can you manage that?" The words landed like stones in her chest. "Not an invitation? A command I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to obey." He finally looked at her, his gaze cold as winter glass. "I need a companion who won't embarrass me. Someone forgettable." Clara's fingers tightened on the polishing cloth. Forgettable. The word burned. "I'll be ready." The restaurant smelled of old money and new ambition. Clara's borrowed dress felt like armor as she walked through doors held open by men in white gloves. Julian stood near the entrance, impatience carved into every line of his face. "You're late. I'm 2 minutes early. And why do I feel like I've been waiting forever?" He gestured toward the interior. "Go. Smile. Say nothing." The investors sat like judges at a round table. Mr. Lawson, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, watched her approach with undisguised curiosity. "Gentlemen, this is Clara." Julian's introduction was dismissive. "She's with me tonight. No last name, no identity. Just Clara." She sat, feeling their stares like pinpricks against her skin. The conversation swirled around profits and projections. Numbers that could feed families for years tossed around like casual observations. "So, Clara," Mr. Lawson's voice cut through the chatter, "what brings someone like you to a dinner like this?" The table fell silent. Julian's warning glare burned into her profile. She could smile, deflect, disappear, or she could breathe. "I find it fascinating," she said quietly. "Watching people discuss numbers while forgetting the lives behind them. Profit margins matter, but so do the hands that build them." The silence that followed felt like falling. Julian's jaw tightened, his hand gripping his wine glass until his knuckles whitened. Mr. Lawson leaned back, a slow smile spreading across his face. Finally, he said, "Someone at this table who understands what business actually means." Julian's eyes promised consequences. Clara had just set fire to her invisible life, and she couldn't bring herself to regret it. The ride back to the mansion was suffocating. Julian drove in silence, his rage filling every inch of space between them. Clara watched the city lights blur past, her heart steady despite the storm waiting for her. The mansion doors slammed behind them with the finality of a coffin closing. "My office now." His voice was ice-wrapped in fury. Clara followed, her heels clicking against marble floors she'd scrubbed 1,000 times on her knees. He didn't wait for her to sit. "What the hell were you thinking?" The words exploded from him. "I brought you to be invisible, not to embarrass me in front of the most important investors in the city. I answered a question. You had opinions? You, a housekeeper, decided you understood business better than me." He moved closer, his presence meant to intimidate. "Do you know what you cost me tonight?" Clara stood her ground, though every instinct screamed to step back. Respect, maybe. From men who were clearly impressed by someone who sees them as human beings instead of walking bank accounts. His hand slammed down on the desk. The sound cracked through the room like thunder. "You are nothing here. A cleaner. A servant. Your job is to scrub floors and follow orders, not to think you belong at tables with people who actually matter." The words were designed to break her. Clara felt them cutting deep, finding scars she'd carried since childhood. But something had shifted tonight. Something had woken up. "If that's what you believe," she said softly, "then why are you so angry? If I'm nothing, why does my voice threaten you so much?" His face went pale, then flushed with rage. "Get out. You're fired. Pack your things and be gone by morning." Clara nodded once. She turned toward the door, then stopped. "You know what I realized tonight, Mr. Blake? You're terrified. Not of losing investors or money. You're terrified someone might see that underneath all this wealth and power, you're just as scared and small as you think the rest of us are. Get out." She left him standing in his office, surrounded by everything he owned and nothing that mattered. Dawn crept through her small room as Clara folded her few possessions. 3 years reduced to a single suitcase. The mansion was silent, holding its breath. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Clara Hart. Yes, this is Richard Lawson. From last night's dinner? I hope I'm not calling too early. Clara's hand tightened on the phone. I'm an early riser, Mr. Lawson. Good, because I have a proposition. Your perspective last night was exactly what my company needs. I'm looking for someone who understands that business is about people, not just profits. Someone unafraid to speak truth to power. Paused. I'd like to offer you a position. Strategy consultant, with potential for rapid advancement. Oh, the room tilted. Clara sat down on her narrow bed. Mr. Lawson, I'm a housekeeper. You were a housekeeper. Now you're someone who impressed one of the toughest investors in this city. The question is, are you brave enough to step into that? Through her window, Clara could see Julian's study. His shadow moved behind curtains, pacing like a caged animal. When do I start? Mr. Lawson's laugh was warm. How does Monday sound? As Clara ended the call, she realized that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is really the best thing in disguise. But she had no idea that 6 months from now, she'd be sitting across a conference table from Julian Blake, holding his company's future in her hands, and he would have no choice but to beg. 6 months transformed Clara like fire transforms steel. The consultant role became senior analyst, then strategy director. She discovered a hunger she didn't know existed, a sharpness that came from years of watching people from the shadows. Your assessment of the Blake Industries acquisition? Mr. Lawson asked during their morning briefing. Clara laid out the folder. Julian's company, bleeding money from arrogant decisions and burned bridges. They're vulnerable. One major investment, and we control 30%. Enough for a board seat. She met Lawson's eyes. Enough to demand changes, and you're certain you want this. Given your history with Blake, this isn't personal. It's business. But her hands trembled slightly as she said it. He taught me that. The acquisition went through on a Tuesday. By Thursday, Clara was sitting in Blake Industries' boardroom. Watching Julian walk in for the leadership meeting, he froze when he saw her. The color drained from his face, then returned in a flush of rage and something else. Something that looked like fear. Their eyes met across the polished table, and the air crackled with 6 months of unspoken words. Miss Hart, he said finally, his voice controlled. Unexpected, Mr. Blake. She kept her tone professional. Shall we begin? The meeting was torture disguised as business. Julian's proposals were desperate, grasping. Clara watched him unravel, each suggestion more reckless than the last. That strategy will cost you everything, she said quietly during his third pitch. You're gambling with people's livelihoods. Since when do you care about strategy? His mask cracked. 6 months ago, you were scrubbing my floors. And now, I'm saving your company from your ego. She slid a document across the table. This is the reality of your situation, Mr. Blake. You need us more than we need you. After the meeting, he cornered her in the hallway. The confident billionaire was gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. What is this? He hissed. Revenge? This is me doing my job. Your job. He laughed, bitter and broken. You've become exactly what I am. Congratulations, Clara. You won. She turned to face him fully, and for the first time saw past the anger to the man beneath. Exhausted, afraid, alone. I didn't want to win, Julian. I wanted you to see me, just once, as a person who mattered. Something shifted in his expression. The walls cracked. I saw you, he whispered. That night at dinner I saw you. And it terrified me because you were everything I'd forgotten how to be. Human. The confession hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Clara felt her heart betray her careful defenses. This broken man wasn't the monster from 6 months ago. He was just broken. It's too late for that, she said, but her voice wavered. Is it? Before she could answer, her phone buzzed. A message from Lawson. Need you in my office. Urgent. It's about Blake. Have to go, she said. But something in Julian's eyes made her add, we're not done. No, he agreed softly. We're not. As she walked away, Clara didn't see the man watching from the shadows. Marcus Chen, Lawson's partner, holding a folder marked confidential. Inside were documents that would prove Clara's entire rise had been orchestrated. That Lawson had planned the Blake acquisition before that dinner 6 months ago. That Clara was never hired for her talent. She was hired to be a weapon, and she was about to discover she'd been aiming at the wrong target all along. Lawson's office smelled like expensive leather and lies. Clara knew the scent of deception now. She'd learned it well. Close the door. She did. Marcus Chen sat in the corner, watching her with eyes that held no warmth. 6 months ago, Lawson began, when I called you after that dinner, what did you think was happening? Clara's stomach dropped. The wrongness in the room pressed against her skin. Said you were impressed by my perspective. I was impressed by your position. He opened a folder. Your access to Julian Blake? Your anger? Your perfect motivation for revenge. The documents scattered across his desk told a story Clara had never seen. Communications dated weeks before the dinner. Plans for Blake Industries acquisition. Her name circled in red. Oh, you knew, she whispered. You knew Julian would fire me. I ensured it. Lawson's smile was cold satisfaction. That dinner was a setup. I needed someone inside Blake's world who had a reason to help me destroy him. Someone he'd underestimate and dismiss. You were perfect, the room spun. Every triumph, every achievement, every moment of pride dissolved into ash. My promotions? My strategies. Real enough. You have genuine talent, Clara. But your access, your inside knowledge of Blake's operations, his patterns, his weaknesses, that's what I really needed. And you delivered beautifully. Marcus spoke for the first time. Tomorrow, we finalize the takeover. Blake will lose everything. His company, his reputation, his future. And you'll be the one who made it possible. Clara's hand shook with rage so pure it felt like ice. You used me. Made me into a weapon against someone who's already broken. Someone who broke you first, Lawson corrected. Or have you forgotten how he treated you? How he threw you away like garbage? She hadn't forgotten. But she'd also seen what 6 months of fear and loss had done to Julian. Seen the human being behind the armor. Sends now. I won't be part of destroying him. Lawson's expression hardened. You don't have a choice. Those strategies you developed, they're locked into contracts with your signature. If you back out, you'll face legal destruction. Everything you've built, gone. And Blake still falls? Then we both fall. Clara stood, her decision crystallizing into diamond-hard certainty. But I won't be your knife anymore. She left them sitting in their expensive office, surrounded by their perfect plan, and drove straight to the one person she'd sworn to never help again. Julian answered his door at midnight, looking like a man who'd forgotten how to sleep. When he saw Clara, confusion and hope warred across his face. They used me, she said without preamble. Lawson. The whole thing was a setup to destroy you, and I was too blind to see it. He let her in. His penthouse was dark, half-packed boxes casting strange shadows. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of being someone's weapon. Because you were cruel, but you didn't deserve to be betrayed. She met his eyes. Because somewhere in the last 6 months, I stopped wanting revenge and started wanting truth. Julian poured 2 glasses of whiskey with shaking hands. The takeover vote is tomorrow morning. Even with your warning, I don't have the votes to stop it. What if you had inside information on Lawson's real plans? Evidence of manipulation and fraud. Do you have that? Clara pulled out her phone, showing him photos of the documents from Lawson's office. I have everything. But if I use this, I lose my career. Everything I built. They'll destroy me legally and professionally. Then don't. Julian's voice was rough. Clara, you don't owe me this. I know, but I owe myself the truth. 6 months ago, you told me I was nothing. You made me believe it for years. But then you also gave me the anger I needed to become something more. Even if it was through pain, I was wrong. The admission seemed to cost him everything. You were never nothing. You were just the only real thing in my empty life. And I was too afraid to admit it. The space between them felt electric. Charged with 6 months of transformation and pain and unexpected recognition. If we do this, she said quietly, if we fight them together, we both might lose everything. Then we lose together. He reached for her hand. I'm done losing alone. Their fingers intertwined. Two broken people choosing to stand rather than kneel. Outside, dawn was breaking. Inside, a war was beginning. The boardroom felt like a coliseum at dawn. Shareholders filled the seats. Lawson and Marcus sat at the head of the table, wearing victory like expensive cologne. And Julian stood alone at the presentation. Screen Clara wasn't there. She'd made her choice in the cold hours before sunrise. Some sacrifices required absence, not presence. Gentlemen, Julian began, his voice steady, despite everything, before we vote on the acquisition. I have information that demands your attention. Lawson's confidence flickered. This is highly irregular. So is corporate espionage and fraud. Julian clicked to the first slide. Clara's photos filled the screen. Documents proving Lawson's manipulation. Communications showing the planned setup. Evidence of orchestrated destruction spanning months. Is Clara Hart, your lead strategist, provided this evidence last night? Julian continued. Evidence that proves this entire acquisition was built on manipulation and insider fraud. The room erupted. Lawson's face went white, then red. This is fabricated. Hart is a disgruntled employee seeking revenge. No, said a voice from the door. Clara walked in, carrying a briefcase, wearing her truth-like armor. Every eye turned to her. I'm a woman who was used as a weapon and chose to be a witness instead. She approached the table, placing documents in front of each board member. These are certified copies, verified by 3 independent lawyers. My full testimony is included. I've also filed formal complaints with the Securities Commission. You'll be destroyed for this, Marcus hissed. Your career, your reputation, everything. I know. Clara's voice didn't waver. But I'd rather lose everything standing up than keep anything built on lies. The vote that followed was swift. The acquisition died. Lawson and Chen were escorted out by security, their empire crumbling in real dash time. Clara walked out of Blake Industries for what she knew would be the last time. Her phone already showed 17 missed calls from former colleagues, 3 termination notices, and 1 message from a journalist asking for comment. She'd sacrificed everything. Julian caught up with her in the parking garage. Clara. Wait. She turned, expecting gratitude or guilt or some mixture of both. Instead, he held out a folder. Partnership agreement. 50-50. Hart and Blake Consulting. We build something new, something honest. His eyes held 6 months of transformation. You taught me that power without integrity is just noise. Let me prove I learned that lesson. Julian, I have no credentials, no reputation left. I'm unemployable. You're the most employable person I know. You chose truth over comfort. That's rarer than any MBA. He stepped closer. And I chose to stop being the man who breaks people, starting with us. The morning sun cut through the garage shadows, painting everything in shades of possibility. This won't be easy, she said, building from nothing. People will doubt us. Some will hate us for what we exposed. Good. His smile was different now. Real. I'm done with easy. Easy made me cruel. Clara took the folder, their fingers brushing. Not quite romance. Not quite redemption. Something more complicated and honest. Equal partners. No boss. No servant. Just to people who learned the hard way that the only thing worth building is truth. They stood in the parking garage as the city woke up around them. 2 broken people who'd chosen to break each other's chains rather than wear them. 6 months ago, Clara had scrubbed Julian's floors and believed she was nothing. Now she stood as his equal, having learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what truly matters. The mansion where she'd been, visible, was behind her. The future they'd build together stretched ahead, uncertain and real. Hart and Blake Consulting, she said, testing the words. Has a ring to it. It sounds like a second chance, Julian agreed. They walked toward the morning light together, carrying nothing but possibility and the hard one. Knowledge that dignity isn't given by others, it's claimed by yourself. Some endings are really beginnings disguised as losses, and some fires don't destroy, they forge. The end.